The strangest adventures happen to you when you get into this music thing. You never quite know what's going to happen. Maybe nothing, but maybe something interesting.
Purple Strange is an interesting band. It has a lot of different facets, and that's partly because of what everybody brings to the band. Chemistry is such a mysterious phenomenon. That's very true in this case as well. It's always a very delicate, fragile, mysterious thing.
You live for it, eventually, because you feel truly alive when you have those few moments up there. I think my goal is I just want to have fun and make sure everyone else around me is having a good time.
Tonight on Band in Seattle, made up of local music pioneers from the last 3 decades, Purple Strange embody what made Seattle the grunge capital in the first place. Welcome to Band in Seattle.
I'm Jack Endino. You probably have some records that I produced in your collection somewhere. I also play guitar in a band called Purple Strange.
Hi, I'm Ron Nine Rudzitis. I'm the guitarist in Purple Strange, singer, songwriter, guitar in Love Battery, and lots of other bands.
Hello, I'm Stroud, and I play the microphone in Purple Strange.
Hi, I'm Kurt Danielson, and I play bass for Purple Strange.
Hey everyone, this is Matt Vandenberg, also known as Vern, drummer of the Purple Strange. Jared was a good friend of mine for many years. We've known each other, hanging around Ballard, Fremont, and he had several projects, and I'd had different projects as well. And we kind of just never really thought much about joining forces until one day it just kind of happened. He had some songs, and I really wanted to see him get these songs out. So there was an opportunity, and we decided it had to happen.
I spent a little time in Lyon, France, and I don't know, this was 2015. And as soon as I was there, instantly, music and poetry was just flying out of my fingertips. I wrote a whole bunch of songs within a short period of time. And when I came back to Seattle, my friend Vern, he said, I could record there when I want at his studio, Stranger Studios. And I was sort of jamming with the band, but I didn't think it was right for that. I thought, why don't I get a bunch of people I know together and do a couple songs here, a couple songs there. And what had happened was that the songs I presented to the first group of people, they liked all the songs, and we just became a band.
Ron and we hooked up again after not seeing each other for a while and began playing music in a band we called Vaporland. We did a record for Strange Earth Records. We were going to do another Vaporland record a couple years ago, but we decided to start playing with Stroud. And Jack was already going to record us, so he was our engineer, producer slash second guitar player. And it just fell together very effortlessly.
I met Jared originally, I'll call him Stroud because he prefers to be called Stroud. He was a kind of all-around go-to guy for Strange Earth Records, which was a record label that was started by Vern, the drummer in Purple Strange, and Van Connor from the Screaming Tree.
The plan originally was we will help Mr. Stroud record some of his songs. And we had so much fun doing it that immediately the thought was, well, wouldn't it be fun to play some of these songs live? Bingo, then you have a band.
After the break, discover more about Purple Strange.
Even as a teenager, I was a big music fan, but I was always very interested in who produced the records and who engineered the records. You know, and at a certain point in my life, I had a choice of what to do with myself as a career, and somehow I wound up as a recording engineer, which I've been doing since 1985 or so. I think I'm up to 700 albums or something like that. Whatever I did seems to have worked.
I knew back in high school that I wanted to play guitar and do music. Me and a couple of friends got together and we started a band, and that was Room 9. And we played in the 80s around Seattle quite a bit. In the late 80s, I started working at Muzak. I was quite influenced by my other work partners who were in Mudhoney and Tad and Bruce Pavitt, who started Sub Pop Records. And after Room 9 had run its course, I began working with other people in the band Love Battery, and we put out 3 records on Sub Pop, toured quite a bit in the 90s, put out a record on a major label. I knew Kurt back in the 80s. His old band, Bundle of Hiss, used to play with Room 9, and we used to bond over our shared love of Joy Division and Gang of Four.
I started playing bass when I was 17. I just played with some friends of mine who were very supportive. I was obsessed with music. The name of the band was Bundle of Hiss. We moved to Seattle eventually. Dan Peters, the drummer for Mudhoney, began playing drums at that point. And our original drummer was the singer. His name was Russ. We recorded a bunch of tracks with Jack and Dino at Reciprocal Recording at about that time. Later, we also worked with a friend, Rick Vaughn, and did another session. And towards the end of that, Tad Doyle, the drummer from 8 Hour, joined on guitar. Tad had recorded some tracks for Sub Pop as a solo artist. Dan suggested that Tad and I get a band together to perform that material live and write more songs and get some other players to join us. And that's what we did. We started Tad sort of unexpectedly in about 1988. We immediately began writing songs, and we were in the studio within a couple weeks starting to record God's Balls, our first record, with Jack. Then we played a gig called the Lame Fest at the Moore Theater with Nirvana and Mudhoney, and then we did the US tour, and then we went to Europe for the first time with Nirvana, and we were both unknown bands then. Watching them play every night was very inspiring, and we were like brothers on the road.
Skinyard was the first band that I was in that actually made a record. The band was active from 1985 to 1992. And we toured the US a few times. We got to go to Europe at the end of 1991, and we actually opened for Nirvana at one point. It was in Vienna in November of 1991, which was right as Nirvana was starting to blow up. They were headlining, and we came along, and our tours just happened to cross, and so the promoters got together and they added us to the bill as the opening band. And that was pretty interesting because 4 times prior to that, Nirvana had opened for us. Nirvana was kind of left field, nobody really saw that coming. That was early in my career. I mean, that was somewhere within the first 50 or 60 albums I recorded was that Nirvana Bleach album, and it's on 8-track.
In Seattle at that time, there was like a sea change in music. Punk rock bands, and there were sort of artier post-punk bands, and there were metal bands. The metal bands were mostly from the east side. And at some point, there was some cross-pollination that occurred. I remember listening to the radio, KCMU once, and Soundgarden's song, Incessant Maze, came on. And of course, I knew those guys, but hearing this song just blew me away. I sort of subconsciously filed away the influences of that experience. It was an epiphany, because it combined like punk rock elements with harder rock elements like the Stooges and Black Sabbath. And I realized that these bands that I grew up on and had rebelled against by playing punk rock actually had some merit, and you could combine those elements and come out with a sort of hybrid sound. And we started doing that. A lot of other bands like Green River and Malfunction and Skinyard and others were doing that as well. And it was a very exciting time because you had this feeling that things were evolving before your very eyes, but you didn't think about it consciously. It just kind of happened without thinking.
When we return, find out more about Purple Strange.
Autoflux is a riff that Kurt brought in. I love the way Stroud will like lay back on the vocals and Jack and I will just start into unknown territory with our guitars.
Kurt kind of had this bass riff and I was fiddling with it. I said, screw it. And next thing you know, I started singing on it, and 2 weeks later we played it live.
One thing that's always been important to me is to have, good vocals, and for me, also the lyrics. To have both is kind of asking a lot of anyone. For Stroud, he really knew how to make his voice make these words come to life. It just made it easy for us to kind of want to get around that and lift it up,
I think Stroud, of all of us, works the hardest on these songs. Being the vocalist, coming up with the vocal part and the lyrics are always, for me, in my other bands, that was the hardest part. I'm just always amazed at where he takes them. Lost our faith in which time stayed. It's not our way. Come then to bed.
I try not to look too far into the future, because in the past it was impossible, and it still is, but the thing is you can't, try as you might, doing whatever you do in your attempts to make something happen, it doesn't necessarily work that way. You just have to sort of have faith and let go, have patience, and just let it go where it's going to go. And I just want to see the band continue. I'd like to see us, go on the road. I'd like to see us keep putting out records. I have no preconceived notions or preconceptions. I just kind of want to let it go. But I think we've got the right group of guys, and it'll be fun to see what happens.
Like I said, I want everyone to have a good time. It's really what it's about. Showing up to pass on some art.
It's a lifestyle choice to dedicate yourself to a form of art that most of modern society doesn't really take seriously as art. You know, there's kind of a gang thing, you might say. There's a communal thing, there's a family thing. Brings to mind Jonathan Poneman, one of the co-founders of Sub Pop, said in an interview that I saw, to him bands were like his sports teams. The way other people think of their favorite, football team or whatever is kind of how we think of our favorite bands. You're kind of rooting for the band that you know to go out and conquer the world, and it's sort of in a similar place in your brain, actually. Now, if you're actually the person in the band, these are like your teammates. It's you and them against the world.
Thanks for watching. To uncover more about our bands, go to bandinseattle.com.
Thank you.